flick it in first a little bit. Yeah. Look at this, side to side. Check it over. Yeah, I mean, it does it, even on these Pirellis, on these scrambly tires.
Kevin, I think you paid like $25,000 for cruise control on your BMW, right? On this bike over here?
That one right there?
This one? Hey everybody, we're back to looking at Chinese motorcycles on the channel. These have been the talk of the town. Josh and Whitney have ridden this particular bike, but I wanted to throw my hat in the ring and give you guys a super honest, unbiased opinion on the CFMoto CLX 700X Heritage model. These bikes have been making the rounds on a lot of YouTube channels. We got ours as a loaner bike for a little bit from CFMoto, but we are in no way paid to say anything you're about to see in this video. We're giving you a completely honest and raw, unbiased opinion on this motorcycle, and I thought who better to do it than yours truly, the Papa Yam. So today we're gonna be doing a deep dive on this bike, looking at all the specifications, trying to look at some nitty-gritties on this thing, see if we can spot any chinks in the armor of this reasonably priced, good-looking little middleweight naked bike that CFMoto is selling. We're gonna take a look at it, all the specifications, go and take it out for a ride, and I'll give you guys my final opinion on it. Let's get into it.
Hey Yam, it's feeling a little dramatic in here.
Yeah, it's kind of a little more dramatic than let me get the lights on really quick. Give me a sec. We'll get this video going here so y'all can see the CLX in all of its glory.
There we go.
This is, first of all, let's talk about the styling on this thing a little bit. Really handsome little ride. I'm looking at it right here. I like that they cleaned up the tail. You have the kind of Pirelli, what are these? The MT somethings, the MT60 tires that you kind of see on the scramblers. The tail tidy is kind of already done right here. This kind of like aftermarket looking-ish exhaust, kind of cool, you know? The styling is a success. What do you think, Whitney?
Yeah, no, this is definitely one of the sexier bikes that you can get for $6,900.
This one's $64.99 actually.
Ooh,
yeah.
For real?
Yeah, let me bust out the specs. So this is $64.99 price as advertised, okay? 693cc dual overhead cam liquid cooled parallel twin, kind of like all the 650-ish class. That displacement in particular is very similar to the MT-07, but if you look closely here, I only know this because we have so much familiarity with the 650 platform from Kawasaki. This is very similar to that engine. And maybe, Whitney, if we can maybe get a side-by-side shot of both of them, because this is eerily similar to the Kawasaki twin. It's a little weird. Looking at some other stuff on this motorcycle, I like the welds, man. That's something I really wanted to check on this bike, is to make sure the frame and the welds looked good. And these are clean welds. These don't look like weird tacked on welds. They definitely have good manufacturing prowess here. And this, honestly, this frame looks very similar to a MT-07 frame or something like that. Fit and finish here is pretty good. I like this fact that the frame cuts between the gas tank here and it kind of splits this. This brushed aluminum look here is very upmarket, really nice. I don't know, it looks cool. I mean, it was designed by Italians supposedly and built by the Chinese, so that's pretty awesome. So power specs, everyone wants to know, 73 horsepower and about 50 foot-pounds of torque, almost exactly like an MT-07. But it's not the 270-degree crank. You're getting the 180-degree crank on this thing. You're not going to get the really cool burbly sounds out of the Yamaha P-Twin that you would normally see. But it's got the 6-speed gearbox as well, with a slipper clutch as well. In fact, I'm going to drop this bike and we can talk about some of the tech and features on this thing, because I don't want to clown on Kevin too much, but this motorcycle, priced at $64.99, does come with cruise control, which is pretty awesome. And Kevin, I think you paid like $25,000 for cruise control on your BMW, right? On this bike over here?
That one right there?
This one? This that we happen to have today?
Yeah, that one right there. It hurts a little bit.
Another thing that you wanted out of your Ducati Monster that this bike has is fully adjustable suspension, which is pretty awesome. Again, I want to point out to the audience that that doesn't mean that this bike necessarily handles amazing. It just means that you can adjust your rebound, compression, and preload front and rear, which is cool. The valving may still be crap, the spring rates may still be totally off, the fork weights might be totally weird. I'm gonna ride this bike and figure out how it performs, but it is cool that they give that to you. You've got an eco and sport mode, a nice clean little dash over here as well. This is very much part and parcel for the category. You know, this looks like an MT-07 dash or a Z650 dash, or actually the Z650s now have that color TFT display, which is a nice little upmarket feature. This bike does not have that, unfortunately. So CLX 700, they make the sport version of the Heritage model. This is the Heritage, so you're gonna have the single disc brake up front. You notice on this side, you don't have the brake disc. It's actually over here. Got a J-Juan brake right there. These are brakes that you'll see on the Zero SRF. I think some Kawasaki's have these. I can't remember off the top of my head, but this is a pretty decent braking setup, pushing a non-radial pull master cylinder right here, just a traditional master cylinder right here, and you know, little round reservoir. So this you actually put the little brake reservoir cover here. It looks a little bit more on market. It's pretty nice. So on this machine, we've got a 3.4 gallon tank, about 49 mpgs claimed. So you can expect to see about 140 miles in the tank in the real world conditions. And in terms of weight, we're looking at 432 pounds for this machine. That is very competitive in the category. MT-07 and Z650s kind of weigh in that low 400, so it's a little bit heavier, but we'll forgive it for being so much cheaper. And also, we've got a 31.4 inch seat height on this motorcycle. And in fact, we're actually gonna get this off the lift now. I'm gonna mount up, tell you guys how it feels ergonomically, then we're gonna get it out on the road. All right guys, before I show you the exhaust, let me show you how it is mounting up on this motorcycle. I'm about 5'11", 32 inch inseam, about 165 pounds. I've got a really pronounced bend in my legs, about a 31.4 inch seat height, so this is super comfortable. I can flap with this thing super easily. It's a little bit more wide around the tank than I would imagine, but the controls feel really neutral. The pegs seem pretty good. I think I'd like them just a teensy bit further back if it was my own motorcycle. But honestly, the ergonomics package here is very standard, very neutral. If you've ridden an MT-07, a Z650, anything like that, this feels very similar, very nice, even neutral seating position. But the most important part we all want to hear is, how does it sound when you fire it up? Well, I'm about to find out. Flick the key over here, it's in neutral, fuel pump going. So again, 180-degree crank, not the cool 270, and a stock exhaust, so it's not doing it any favors, but we'll wick the wick here a little bit. You know, it's a little lawnmower-y, but what do you expect? But yeah, let's see if the sum of this bike's parts are greater than the engine's sound. Let's go take it for a ride.
All right, everybody, now we are mobbing around on the CLX 700 Heritage. First thing you got to see is if it'll lift the front wheel with a 693cc. Flick it in first a little bit. Yeah, I wouldn't say it's a wheelie monster like an MT-07, but definitely willing. It won't really do it on power in first gear as far as I've found, so that's a little disappointing. But hey, it's a Heritage model bike. It's kind of like a Ducati Scrambler, not really designed to do big wheelies and stuff. We'll try to float one in a second. Let's see what happens. Yeah, you need a lot more emphasis on that one. Nope, I'm not good enough to do it in second, guys. Y'all know I'm not the best at wheelies. All right, anyways, enough joking around with this bike. Let me tell you how it feels for a normal human being to ride it around. What do I think? I've been riding this bike around this morning, and so far so good. I will say that the reports initially are good. I'm very happy with this bike so far. There are quite a few things I want to talk about, but I will say the overall impression, if you get nothing away from this video, is that this bike's a solid 85 out of 100 for me. Definitely a B tier bike. Very competent at what it's supposed to do, and you know, definitely giving me a good motorcycling enjoyment. Now, I did say this video was going to be totally honest, unbiased, and I'm going to give you guys the raw truth, and well, part of that is the raw truth. It is a decent little bike, and it's constructed pretty well. First of all, I think the fit and finish on this thing is really good for $64.99. I like the routing of the cables here. It's really nice and clean. The gas tank feels premium. It feels really you know, buttoned up. It's nice and tight in its construction. The welds are clean, like I said in the video in the shop, and I like it. We're gonna try this cruise control on later. I've already tested it out on the highway, and this is a super intuitive, easy to use cruise control system. It's actually better than a lot of cruise control systems I've used on more expensive motorcycles. I'm thinking the Aprilias, those sort of things. It's actually a lot better than those, which is really surprising. It's surprising that a bike that's $64.99 comes with cruise control and is this much fun to ride. So you've got eco and sport mode on this thing. Honestly, don't even bother with eco mode. Eco mode is your right wrist. All you got to do is just lay off the gas a little bit and just keep it cruising, and you'll be just fine with the fuel economy. I don't really think you need eco mode. You should just keep this thing in sport mode all the time. The feeling of the turn indicators, first of all, as we're going through kind of the tech features and the buttons and stuff, turn indicators are not as tactile as I would want. I don't get a nice push in for canceling. It kind of just very toughly kind of taps in, which I don't like. I like a really traditional, just like little switch gauge that goes in and out, left and right. This one goes left and right pretty well, but it doesn't, you got to push it pretty hard to get it down in there, which kind of sucks. Clutch feel is really nice on this machine. Let's talk like basic control inputs. Really nice clutch feel, I gotta say. Top notch right there with a Cowie or a Yamaha. Really, really nice. We'll grab a couple gears down here. No problem grabbing a couple revs. Going up to third, up to fourth, up to fifth. And this is a motorcycle that you can really use the clutch really, really simply and easily. It's really nice, and it makes it definitely beginner friendly. This is a decent option if you're looking at something in the MT-07 category, maybe as your first ride. You know, you could consider the CLX. This is definitely something that you should think about. All right, as we're cruising to a stop here at the stop sign, I'll talk about the front brakes a little bit. Front brakes on this machine are honestly pretty nice. They're actually better than MT-07 front brakes from what I've been able to tell. I've got good amounts of stopping power from the lever. We'll pull up on this Camry a little bit and we'll actually stab the lever. Yeah, good progressive feel. I've got a good amount of modulation I can have with the lever, and that makes me happy. I also like that it's a small touch, but I like that this bike has the round reservoir cap right here. That actually does make a pretty big difference to me. I do like that. As far as the tire size and wheel setup, this is an 18-inch front and a 17-inch out back, I believe. Sitting on a 110 up front instead of a 120, so a little bit more narrow, and a 180 55 17 out back, so that traditional sport bike tire size. And as I flick it over here to the left, I'm honestly really surprised at how willing this thing is to kind of crank it over, especially this Heritage model. Click it up into fourth gear here. Yeah, it's honestly pretty cool how it wants to dance a little bit. Really wants to dance. It's not too bad. But speaking of that throttle, we were talking about, you know, the power of this thing and the handling and all that, and we're going to get to a lot of that. You know, the throttle response is, I would rate it like a 6 out of 10. There's something a little bit strange about neutral throttle on this machine. You get off throttle here, you get back on neutral throttle, it's like the valve isn't open as much as you would expect. It feels a little strange at neutral throttle, as opposed to other Japanese bikes that I've tried. The rev matching is really nice. You got a really positive interaction with the throttle. You can really blip this thing really nicely. Look at this, side to side. Check it over. Yeah, I mean, it does it, even on these Pirellis, on these scrambly tires. It does a great job just holding a line, really predictable. Get on the gas. Still really enjoyable and fun to ride in that sense. But I will say this motorcycle is a little bit buzzy. I didn't point this out in the shop, but there are really big rubber inserts on the foot pegs, and I know now why they did that. They did that because at about 4,500 RPM, where you're most likely cruising around town, getting up into 5,000 a little bit, boy, it's super buzzy through the pegs and through the legs. Not so bad through the handlebars. It's actually really nice through the handlebars, really similar to an MT-07, Z650, the Japanese caliber, middleweight nakeds. But boy, the down low stuff down here with the pegs, I'm not loving that. That's going to be annoying on a long ride if you're doing a 3-4 hour ride on this thing, which, you know, that's a pretty long ride for a bike without wind protection. You're not going to be crushing 500 miles with this thing. You know, if you're doing a big long weekend ride with your boys or your girls, you know, it's a little vibrational at the foot peg. It's not the best thing in the world. There might be ways to solve that, but you know, as I sit right now, I can't really think of a way off the top of my head instead of just having bigger and beefier rubber inserts. Let's talk about the suspension on this motorcycle. So you would see fully adjustable suspension and you would think to yourself, wow, that's really upmarket, that's super nice. I'm so glad that they put that on there at that price point. However, as it sits now from the factory settings, I did not get the chance to fully dial in this motorcycle for today's ride, and I don't know if I could fix this problem because it seems deeper than just a rebound or compression setting. It's incredibly harsh. The ride is very, very harsh. I've noticed that when you have it cranked over, it's not, like, it'll hold the line. Like, I'll crank it over here to the left. I'll go here towards the yellow, exactly where I want to go. But when you're going over bumps, when you're on the side of the tire or going over rough pavement, you're getting bucked in the seat quite a bit. And also this seat shelf back here feels a little bit funny. There's like a scoop in the seat, and when you're trying to get a little more sporty with it, kind of putting yourself back, putting yourself in that pocket of where you're supposed to be riding, that shelf is a little bit funny. I'd prefer if it was just a flat bench seat. I think it'd match the style of this bike a little bit better. That scoop ends up feeling a little bit strange in my opinion. But I would be interested to see if I can dial out some of that stuff with the suspension settings. I'd love to kind of dive into this a little bit, get the preload perfect for my weight, even though I bet you from factory this is pretty near my weight. Most motorcycles are spec'd for about 160 to 180 pound rider, and me with all of my gear on, I'm about 170 pounds. So that should be right in the middle. I've never had to mess with preload too much on new motorcycles, except for the 1098, because that notoriously has a very stiff spring in the back. It should work for me. So I'm curious to see if I can dial some of that out. I will report back, maybe in a pinned comment down below, if I'm able to get that a little correct. I did not bring any tools with me to mess with the suspension on today's ride, but if I had a longer weekend trip with it, I would definitely be interested in trying to get this machine a little bit more dialed in from a suspension perspective, and to see if you can fix it, because from where I'm sitting right now, it's very vibrational, very harsh. And that could also be the tires too, you know. I don't want you guys to think that it's just the frame, just the suspension. I mean, these tires could be very stiff as well. They couldn't be absorbing the same type of things. I'm not sure. It could be a combination of all those things. Motorcycle handling is a complicated subject. So I want to talk a little bit more about this engine. We've got a red line of about 8,000 RPM on this bad boy, and that's a little bit lower than an MT-07. MT-07 red line's at about 10,000, so you got a little bit more rev ceiling. It feels about as fast, I would say. I don't long for performance on this thing, given the category of bike that it's in. Since it is that middleweight 650-ish cc bike, it's appropriately powerful for the sort of motorcycle that it is. Would I like a little bit more linear power? I sure would, because this engine seems to kind of, it has a scoop to the power band. You're kind of hanging around the 0 RPM to about 4,000 RPM. It kind of lingers. You get to 4, it's like somebody turns on a light switch and then you finally get power. There is power, but it's kind of shelved like that. And I'm in sport mode, not an eco mode for that one. But yeah, I will say, all things considered, the engine is pretty peppy, pretty willing to rev out, pretty willing to have some fun. It's not an engine that, you know, is gonna surprise you. It's very similar to the parallel twin offerings from Kawasaki and some of the other manufacturers, but you know, I think there's nothing wrong with that. You know, there's nothing wrong with coming out with an engine that is basically the same as some of the other things, and again, eerily similar to Kawasaki's E650. We're gonna jump on the highway over here, on Highway 360 here in Austin, Texas. I'm gonna go ahead and ring this thing out. Well, no, I'm not, because there's traffic. Well, I'm gonna try. I'm gonna try to merge into traffic here, ring this thing out a little bit, let you guys see kind of a 5 mile per hour to maybe about 80 or 90 miles per hour on this machine. We'll see if we're able to do that. This guy's probably upset at me because he's like, go in the right lane, but I'm waiting, my friend. I've got a plan. All right, we'll roll out here, and then we're just gonna get on the gas. Plenty peppy. It's about the same amount of acceleration that an MT-07 or Z650 would provide. One interesting thing though, because I haven't done that yet on that bike, is giving it like a proper romping through first through fourth gear, is when you get up to the top end of like third and fourth gear, second gear, and you shift, there's a noticeable pause, I guess, between power. It's not as quick as I thought it would be. like between the gears. You got to take your time with the gearbox a little bit. But speaking of which, I will talk about the gearbox a little bit. Really nice. I mean, part of me feels like they just stole Kawasaki's gearbox because it feels like a Kawi gearbox. And I really like Kawasaki gearboxes. I love the gearbox on the Z900, on the ZX6, on the ZX10. Those are all really nice, snickety gearboxes that have a really positive engagement on the lever. And this is no different because I think it's a Z650 engine that's just been kind of bored out a little bit or stroked out a little bit. We don't know. We don't know. We're not going to put any things out there in the universe about CFMoto, but boy, it's very similar to the Z650. I will say that. So while we're cruising here on the highway, doing about 50 miles per hour, this is kind of a highway slash side street. There's off, shoots for neighborhoods and stuff. We'll go ahead and use the cruise control. Man, this feature's super cool on this bike, man. Honestly, one of the highlights for me is cruise control of this thing. You hit the button over here, turn it on, set it, and you're cruising. Super easy to use. Aprilia could definitely take a page out of this book, is just getting a super simple, easy to use cruise control, because I feel like a lot of manufacturers have much more sophisticated things happening on the left cluster that they have to make things do so many other things. They have to make like BMW's jog wheel button or Triumph's crazy little joystick thing. And it just ends up compromising the ability to make a simple setup like this. This is just like a car. You flip cruise control and then you can increase the speed with the button over here, decrease it. You can increase your speed a little bit here and then set your new speed, which is, it's extremely intuitive, very easy to understand. You tap the brakes, cruise control's off, very safe, very normal. Part of me wants to say it's kind of like the ZH2's cruise control because that was very similar to this. But again, I don't want to say the CFMoto is just copycat Kawasaki, but the evidence is lining up a little bit. I wanted to wrap up saying that the looks on this bike are pretty cool. I thought that getting the light up X on the front and the brushed aluminum here and this kind of split gas tank and frame look, it's a pretty cool looking little motorcycle that I think a lot of people would be proud to own, especially at this price point. Now, the big elephant in the room, and I have to address it, is the fact that a lot of people don't know how these motorcycles will last in the long run. And unfortunately, I do not have this motorcycle for a long enough time to put on like 10,000 miles on it to see how it would do and where I could get it serviced and all that good stuff. But I will say CFMoto does make a bunch of ATVs and side-by-sides. This is not their first at bat at making a wheeled vehicle with an engine. They kind of know what they're doing. You can take oil samples from bikes when they come out of the factory and you're like, oh, there's like, particles or whatever, but just change the oil, guys. It's no big deal. It's not going to destroy your engine. That's not really a good measure, in my opinion, of an engine's build quality. The reliability of this thing has to be tested. We have to see in the real world people who decide to buy these and use them and ride them and if they get any weirdness with them. So far, it feels like, if you didn't tell me this was a Chinese bike, I would think this is a used Japanese bike, or maybe a last generation Japanese bike. I would think this is if you had like blotted up all the badging and stuff and maybe changed out the wheels and tires, because that would be a dead giveaway, I'd be like, that's not a Japanese bike. I would think it's like a 2013 Kawasaki. That's how it feels, and there's nothing wrong with that. A lot of people still rolling around on those 10-year-old Japanese bikes, 20-year-old Japanese bikes, because they just simply work. And that's what we're going to want to see with this Chinese motorcycle, is making sure that we're still having that reliability from these bikes. And it's just really unknown right now. They need to prove themselves and prove their brand in the market. And I think by lowering the price like they have and adding stuff like cruise control and making the bike look cool, that stuff matters to people and it makes a difference. And people really do want to see stuff like that. And I think it is going to make a big difference for the market. So yeah, overall, I would rate this thing a solid B. Like the brakes, throttle's okay, handling is pretty good, side to side that is. Suspension could use a little bit of adjustment and work. It feels a little harsh and a little strange, a little buzzy on the foot pegs, but overall for their kind of first foray, it's a good execution. It's a really good execution, and And now I'm going to use cruise control and head back to the office. So guys, thanks so much for watching today's video. I hope you enjoyed today's unbiased review on the CLX Heritage 700, or is it CLX 700 Heritage? Who can say? It's one of the combinations of the two. Let me know what you think down below in the comments. I would love to hear your opinions on these bikes. I want to just reiterate, we were not paid or made to say anything of what you heard in the video. The only thing that we did was we got a loaner bike from CFMoto, and I am saying exactly what I think about this machine. With all that being said, thanks so much for watching. We'll catch you guys in the next one. See you later. Oh, just hit that bump and that suspension reared its ugly head again. Yeah, definitely a little bit harsh.
Well, look at you. You've made it to the end of another Yami Noob video. You should consider yourself pretty lucky because I have curated this one right over here for you to continue watching. It's probably just as good as the one you just saw. Unless you hated the one you just saw. I don't know, maybe leave me a comment down below about how much you hated it as well too. Or just keep watching this one. Make sure you keep watching Yami Noob. Don't forget to keep watching Yami Noob. That's the most important thing. Keep watching Yami Noob.